Many times, in investigating strange and mysterious events, the stories will go off on tangents. It's difficult to discern what is relevant and what is not. Do the tangents ultimately return to the main topic? This is the case with the tale of the Kentucky Goblins. The actual tale begins in 1955, between Hopkinsville and Kelly, Kentucky. A remote farmhouse was besieged by many hairless, little goblin-like creatures that prompted the panicked residents to open fire with shotguns. The house was owned by the Suttons, who had friends over for a get-together that night. Ultimately, 5 harried adults and a few children showed up at the Hopkinsville Police Department with a wild story that their 3-room house had been attacked by miniature alien creatures. The family had been fending off the assault with gunfire for nearly 4 hours. Elmer Sutton and Billy Ray Taylor claimed that 12 to 15 short, dark creatures were at the doors and windows, scaring all those inside half to death. They described the creatures as 4 foot tall with long, skinny arms that hung down to their ankles. They had eyes that seemed to glow in the dark. They also had very pointy ears. As most would imagine, the police blew off the report as a hoax. But as word spread, people had all kinds of theories as to what the supposed aliens were. Ideas included great horned owls, space aliens, and goblins. The military suggested they were silver-painted circus monkeys. The little beasts seemed to just disappear without a trace for about 50 years. By 2012, there was a defunct website that some friends created and never removed from the internet called Ghost Hunters Incorporated. One of the founding members of that site was a ghost hunter named Greg Newkirk. Greg had moved on to bigger and better things by the time a bizarre email appeared on the website. On April 22, 2012, there was an urgent plea from a terrified man named David, who told of his home in eastern Kentucky, hundreds of miles from Hopkinsville, being under attack every night by little 3-toed creatures. They seemed to be coming from an abandoned mine shaft at the back of his property. The house was near Hellier, Kentucky, close to the border of West Virginia. He described the little creatures as small and childlike, with no facial features. Their eyes were large, black, and oily. He claimed that there were many of them, and that they seemed to use chirping noises coming from their throats to communicate with each other. They appeared to delight in peering through the windows and scaring the children. David resorted to keeping his dog inside because it would bark itself hoarse at something lurking in the woods. Every morning, his yard was all in disarray, and some of his kids' toys were moved around or gone altogether. He had reported it to the police, but they also dismissed it. There were small footprints that resembled a human's, but without the heel. The state police were dispatched after several pleas with the police, and they determined it was wild animals. David was assured that they certainly were not wild animals. He was at his wit's end, and the family was terrified. He received the website address from a mutual friend. Newkirk thought it was a joke, and absent-mindedly replied, asking for more information and any evidence the man had to back this outlandish claim. Newkirk then created the Alien Cave Task Force for a laugh. Then he saw a reply from David. This time, David gave better descriptions and was clearly out of his mind with fear. With this second plea for help, Newkirk started to think that he may need to at least look into the claims. This man isn't letting up and is completely desperate. After doing some digging, Newkirk discovered that eastern Kentucky is a relative hotbed of alien and otherwise unexplained sightings. A local task force had even contacted the state police, and their reply was that space aliens are reported all the time. Armed with this interesting information, Newkirk again contacted David, asking for more evidence. There was no response from David until mid-June 2012. Apologizing for the delay, he explained his family had finally packed up and moved out of state to live with his wife's sister. David and his brother-in-law had returned to the house in Hellier to get some things they needed, and although the house appeared to be fine, There were footprints leading through the woods, along a stream to the entrance of a cave at the back of his property. To make matters worse, some of his kids' toys were scattered around outside the cave entrance. Even though he was terrified, he took pictures of the footprints and attached them to the email. And the mutual friend was a man named Terry Rist. Newkirk posted the pictures to a website, and viewers theorized the origins of the bizarre prints. Theories ranged from wild hog tracks, bear tracks, three-toed humans, and even Sasquatch. One suggested it was a man on stilts with monster feet stuck on the end. Another reader even sent it to the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife, who could not identify what made the footprint, but would not say it was fake. Newkirk searched the web again and found the footprints bore a striking resemblance to the Dover demon case and a three-toed monster called a Mysterian in the case of the Fouke monster sighting. He emailed David again, suggesting he take pictures of the prints next to a ruler or yardstick to get an idea of relative size. But the other question still remained. Who is Terry Rist? David took more pictures using a measuring stick, and the prints in mud were approximately 6 inches long. He also sent photos of what he called the actual creatures. They were blurry, and Newkirk had them analyzed, but not much came of it. That was the last email from David. No more mention of Terry Rist. This is where the story gets very complicated. Terry Rist turned out to be a fake name, used by a man who led Black Ops military raids on secret alien cave bases back in the 1970s after the Vietnam War ended. These cave bases were all over the United States. The mission was to get into the bases and destroy all alien life within. Unfortunately, the mission failed miserably. Rist faded into obscurity, save for appearing in 2 books as an interviewee. With this new information, Newkirk was determined to get to the bottom of all of this. How were the Hopkinsville attack, Hellier attack, Terry Rist, and alien bases connected? It was a perplexing puzzle, to say the least. So after receiving a message with strange GPS coordinates from an alleged man in black, he realized the coordinates led to a mountain in the heart of North Carolina with its own alien history. Round Mountain has had a long history going back to the Cherokee Indian times, as having a concentrated number of alien abductions, mysterious lights, and of the disappearance of a tiny alien mummy. It still didn't answer the questions of how this is all connected. A year later, an email came in from the elusive Terry Rist. Rist claimed to back up David's story, but said it was much bigger than anyone could imagine. He sent a second email with weird numbers, which, after much discussion, were found to be GPS coordinates that led straight to Brown Mountain. Newkirk and others attempted to personally find the alien cave base in Brown Mountain. Upon finding the cave deep in the mountains of North Carolina, a large rock, unlike any rock nearby, blocked their way into the cave. Then, in 2015, Newkirk received a book called Alien Legacy by author Geraldine Sutton Stith. Stith was the daughter of one of the men, Lucky Sutton, who fired his shotgun at the creatures in the 1955 attack in Hopkinsville. After reading the book, Newkirk managed to get in contact with Stith and proceeded to talk to her directly. Together, Newkirk and Stith realized some discrepancies between the 1955 and 2012 attacks. In 1955, the creatures were said to have large glow-in-the-dark eyes and big pointy ears. In 2012, the description was of large black, oily eyes and no ears to speak of. In 1955, the witnesses thought the creatures came from the sky, while in 2012, David said they came out of a cave. This is where it gets even weirder. Stith said that a man came to her with his father's deathbed confession from that night in 1955. Apparently, the man was a soldier at nearby Fort Campbell, and he was a part of a team sent to Hopkinsville to retrieve the wreckage from a crashed UFO. All debris collected was immediately sent off to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Stith confirmed that there have been reports for many years from eastern Kentucky of mysterious lights, the mountains humming, a hidden mountain base, and a hushed-up military presence. People have even been known to disappear. This alleged Kentucky hotbed was called Black Mountain, or its old name, Lynch Mountain. Newkirk did some checking and realized that Black Mountain was very near to Hellier. And although Hopkinsville and Hellier are hundreds of miles apart, Kentucky is known as having a karst environment. Karst means basically that there are underground caves. There is a major cave system close to Hopkinsville, Mammoth Cave, which has now been mapped at 420 miles of underground passages. Could the creatures have gone underground in Hopkinsville and adapted to the subterranean world? Could they follow passages until they found Black Mountain? To the best scholars' knowledge, caves do not connect Hopkinsville and Hellier, but who can truly tell? The state caves have not been mapped entirely. In the 1950s and 1960s, Kentucky was still a very wild place, thick with forests and undergrowth, and crisscrossed by rivers. After all this came to light, Newkirk proposed a timeline of events that could theoretically tie the two attacks together with Brown Mountain, Black Mountain, alien cave bases, and crashed UFOs. August 21st, 1955. A UFO crashes near Hopkinsville, Kentucky. The survivors of the crash are stunned and staggering out of their wrecked craft. Locals see them and become frightened, opening fire with shotguns. In the ensuing confusion, military personnel gather up the wreckage and ship it off. The crash survivors have nowhere to go except to find shelter in a cave. Over the next 10 years or so, maybe, and this is pure speculation, they picked up some of their fellow crash survivors and adapted to the caves, following them and forest cover as far as North Carolina. Were the pointy ears and glowing eyes part of a spacesuit they no longer needed? 1961. A man named Ralph Lyell has a close encounter near Black Mountain, Kentucky, and brings a mummified alien home. 1970s. Alan Greenfield goes to Black Mountain to meet Ralph Lyell, but is approached by a man in black in his hotel room who tried to discredit Lyell as being a drunken moonshiner. 1975. The Vietnam War ends. Terry Rist is sent to infiltrate alien cave bases throughout the United States. He leads a Black Ops team that is trained to destroy any life forms they find. Mission fails. 1980s. Ralph Lyell dies, his shop is bulldozed, and the alien mummy disappears. It has not been seen since. Late 2011. A family near Hellier, Kentucky is terrorized by goblin-like creatures who may have come from Black Mountain. Early 2012. David contacts the police about the goblin attacks, but the police dismiss it. Someone at the department leaks the information to someone who had an interest, a veteran named Terry Rist. Rist meets David and persuades him to contact Ghost Hunters Incorporated and ultimately Greg Newkirk. June 2012, David contacts Greg Newkirk, now the editor of Planet Weird, and pleads for help. David sends emails and pictures and then disappears. October 2012, Planet Weird investigators track down the Brown Mountain alien cave base. In February 2013, Terry Rist contacts Planet Weird with coordinates to Brown Mountain cave base. Fake? Jump to May 2015, Newkirk gets a copy of Alien Legacy and contacts author Geraldine Sutton Stith. They begin piecing bits of information together. September 2015, Newkirk emails David, but the account is deactivated. October 2015, Newkirk and team are off to Hellier to investigate Black Mountain. In 2019, Newkirk produced a series called Helier that airs on YouTube. There is a second season as well. It chronicles their investigation. If any viewers want any more information, please watch Helier. Also, on the Travel Channel, Mountain Monsters filmed an episode on cave creatures, Season 2, Episode 11, Cave Creature of Greenbrier County, West Virginia. All in all, we may never know how the creatures got from Hopkinsville to Hellier or to Greenbrier County, West Virginia, or even if they are connected. However, one explanation is as plausible as the next, and investigators will keep these stories on their radar for many years to come.
Few incidents in history have created as many conspiracy theories as the Roswell Incident of 1947. There are rumors and conspiracy theories even today. And with all of the government's backtracking and changing of their story, no one knows what really happened that night. But as technology improves and more classified documents become unclassified, we may still learn the truth. Are there UFOs visiting Earth? And did one actually crash at Roswell, fueling all of the hype? Who can we believe? With conspiracy theories swirling like a dust storm in Cairo, there are some facts that are pretty well accepted and are believed to have happened. That is, eyewitnesses have not been debunked or discredited, and a general timeline can be established. From those accounts, the theories and claims of extraterrestrial life and space travel were born. In the summer of 1947, there were reports all over the area surrounding Roswell, New Mexico, of strange lights and odd things in the skies. These accounts were widely reported in the local papers leading up to the night of the Roswell Incident. About 75 miles north of Roswell, something crashed into the parched earth near Corona, New Mexico. A local rancher named W. Mac Broswell found some strange debris on his property. Believing this wreckage to be of extraterrestrial origin, thanks to all the recent publicity of sightings, Broswell took some debris to the sheriff of Roswell, George Wilcox. Wilcox thought it was unusual and took the story to the commander of the Roswell Army Airfield, Colonel William Blanchard. The samples from Broswell included some foil, rubber strips, and heavy paper. There were eyewitnesses at the time who even claimed to see alien bodies removed from the wreckage. Shortly thereafter, the RAAF released a statement saying, quote, "The many rumors regarding the flying disc became a reality yesterday when the intelligence office of the 509th Bomb Group of the 8th Air Force Roswell Army Airfield was fortunate enough to gain possession of a disc through the cooperation of the local ranchers and the Sheriff's Office of Chavez County. Then Major Jesse Marcel, an intelligence officer, was sent to supervise the RAAF's investigation of the crash site and recovered debris. The next day, the Roswell Daily Record ran the wild story, including the RAAF claim. U.S. Army officials quickly changed the story to say that the recovered debris was from a misidentified crashed weather balloon. UFO researchers questioned the validity of this new story. Then, in 1994, the U.S. Air Force finally admitted that the crashed weather balloon story was a complete hoax. Their new story was that the wreckage was from some top-secret device created to spy on the Soviets. According to the new explanation, Project Mogul supposedly consisted of a string of high-altitude weather balloons that were rigged up with microphones to keep an ear on the Soviets as the innocuous-looking balloons floated over the USSR. The intel gained was to listen to Soviet plans to test nuclear bombs. Because of the intelligence-gathering purpose of the project, the original weather balloon story was necessary to thwart unnecessary inquiries. A follow-up statement in 1997 said that the alien bodies from the crash site were actually parachute test dummies that had crashed with the balloon. A renowned historian and retired curator for the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum, Roger Launius, said that the Roswell story has been resolved. He believes that the 1994 and 1997 divulgences explained most of the outstanding questions. He does admit, however, that not every possibility has been explained, and that there are still holes in the story. He says that, in the interest of national security, a government agency should not, under any circumstance, divulge secrets that may jeopardize the safety of the nation. Not everyone agrees with him, however. In fact, UFO researcher Donald Schmitt says that the explanations from 1994 and 1997 make no sense at all. He has investigated the Roswell Incident for over 30 years and is the co-founder of the International UFO Museum and Research Center in Roswell. He asked that, if the microphone-wired weather balloons and/or parachute test dummies were so top secret, then why divulge them at all? Such a wild story was bound to cause a frenzy of attention, which was counterintuitive to the nature of their very missions. And such claims would only manage to draw attention to an area with extraordinarily sensitive military operations. He also quoted that 2 hours west of Roswell, in Alamogordo, the United States detonated the first atomic bomb. There is ongoing atomic research at Los Alamos, which is 200 miles away from Roswell. There was testing done on a captured German V-2 rocket at White Sands, which is just 106 miles away. And the first atomic bomb squadron was stationed at the Army airfield in Roswell. Is that all just an odd coincidence? And so, the conspiracy theories spiral out in all directions from there. The most obvious is that we are not alone in the universe, and that visitors from other worlds have come and gone. What were the bodies that were recovered? Were they aliens killed when their flying saucer crashed? Another wild theory came out in the book Area 51, an uncensored history of America's top secret military base. Based on evidence, a story emerged that the dictator of the USSR, Joseph Stalin, experimented with scientists to deform adolescents and children to look like aliens. These deformed young people were flown over to the United States and deliberately crashed at Roswell to cause panic and fear that the US had been invaded by aliens. Perhaps someone watched too many cheesy science fiction movies of the day. However, another odd tale emerged to support the idea that the crash was somehow related to the Russians. The son of Major Jesse Marcel, Jesse Jr., claimed that the crash occurred when he was 11 years old. His dad brought some of the recovered debris home. One piece in particular was metallic in nature and covered in strange symbols, but not like Egyptian hieroglyphs. It was more like geometric shapes, including squares, circles, triangles, and mysterious symbols. Meanwhile, Roger Launius and Donald Schmitt both agree that there is no evidence to suggest that any such experimentation was ever performed or that the wreckage was of Soviet origin. Then, in 1980, a book called The Roswell Incident claimed that the weather balloon story was part of a large attempt by the government to cover up what actually happened. The authors theorized that the real crash site debris was flown immediately to Wright Field, now known as Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, near Dayton, Ohio, while other debris was substituted in for the pictures that were taken for the press. The book was not widely accepted, but it did manage to spark even more controversy by getting food for thought. One example of this was the emergence of documents that showed Harry Truman, president at the time, had initiated a secret project called Majestic 12 to cover up the truth about what actually happened at Roswell. These documents were later proven to be fake. Another example came out in 1989 when a mortician, Glenn Dennis, claimed to have actually performed the autopsies on the alien bodies that were recovered from Roswell. He claimed that there was an Army nurse known as Nurse X who worked with him and then vanished. Inquiries as to what happened to her were fuzzy and not forthcoming. but the Army said she was transferred to England and killed in a plane crash there. Many people have tried to debunk and discredit Dennis through the years, but there have been numerous people, both first-hand and second-hand witnesses, who have come forward to corroborate his story of little dead alien bodies that needed child-sized caskets. Witnesses run the gamut from law enforcement to friends to one nurse who worked with the National Institute of Health. To this day, nobody really knows for sure who Nurse X was, but several women have become possibilities through extensive research and interviews. In 1992, Donald Schmidt co-founded the International UFO Museum and Research Center in Roswell to try to prove or debunk all the stories coming forth. The center has become the hotspot and leading institute for all things Roswell. In 1996, the center began hosting an annual UFO festival. In 1995, a 17-minute long video emerged as the actual alien autopsy. It was later found to be a fraud. The director finally cracked and said they did it for the publicity. But was everything coming forward a hoax? Was there any basis for people to still believe all the UFO and alien body stories? The answer is a resounding yes. There are reasons for skepticism, but there are also reasons to believe that at least some of the stories have basis in truth. The most persuasive piece of evidence to date came from Walter Haut, the public affairs officer at RAAF in 1947, who gave the initial statement of a captured flying disc. In 2002, he signed a sworn official affidavit stating that the initial story was true and that he himself was involved in the elaborate cover-up of the actual events. He died in 2005, but he isn't the only person who has given official statements through the years. Donald Schmidt and other investigators have compiled these witness statements, saying that the truth is out there. With stories and hoaxes flying around like gnats in the summer, there will never be a shortage of fodder for our imaginations. With what has appeared to be pure fiction may indeed be verifiable proof of the existence of extraterrestrial life. Maybe, in time, we'll get the proverbial smoking gun. But for now, all we have is speculation and imagination.
Historically, one of the most controversial and mysterious locations in the United States is a teensy dot on a map in the middle of the Nevada desert called Groom Lake. Most are familiar with its more famous moniker of Area 51. However, the official name of the facility is the Nevada Test and Training Range at Groom Lake. Area 51 resides near the small towns of Rachel and Hico, Nevada. And what is definitely known about the location is that there are buildings, runways, and the entire site is cordoned off with governmental no trespassing signs everywhere. It encompasses 2.9 million acres, and the longest runway is 2.3 miles long. Intensely shrouded in secrecy, it is estimated that at least 1,500 people are employed at Area 51. The government has been using the site for the development of new and secretive aircraft for decades in conjunction with the aerospace giant Lockheed Martin. According to documents declassified in 2007, Area 51 was commissioned in 1955 to develop a spy plane during the Cold War to keep an eye on Soviet activities deep inside the USSR. The plane needed to be undetectable in the air by enemy radar. Behold, the birth of Project Oxcart. Area 51 was chosen because of the close proximity to two other highly restricted areas. One of those, the Nevada National Security Site, or otherwise known as the Nevada Test Site, was the location of U.S. nuclear weapons testing from the 1950s through 1990s. The site has been used by the CIA, the U.S. Air Force, and Lockheed Martin for running test flights of so-called black aircraft, which are experimental, captured, or reverse-engineered aircraft. It's important to note here that Area 51 was only officially acknowledged by the CIA in 2013. The types of aircraft developed and tested at the facility include the U-2 Dragon Lady, the A-12 Archangel, the SR-71 Blackbird, and the F-117 Nighthawk. The U-2 Dragon Lady was a high-altitude surveillance plane that has been in service since 1956. It is equipped with terrain mapping, communications capturing, and high-resolution photographic equipment, and it cruises above 70,000 feet. When people first saw the U-2 back in the 50s, they had no idea what they were seeing. Many misidentified the craft as being extraterrestrial in nature, and instead of trying to dissuade the UFO notion, the CIA allowed the alien spacecraft story to perpetuate in order to protect the true nature of the activities at Area 51, namely international espionage. In fact, the CIA developed an office in the 1950s to investigate and handle any sightings of UFO activity over Nevada. Although the last U-2 plane was built in 1989, its retirement was supposed to be sometime after 2015. The U-2 was crucial in operations during the Iraq War, and now its retirement has been pushed back indefinitely. The A-12 Archangel was a reconnaissance airplane, and the F-117 Nighthawk is a stealth fighter built by Lockheed Martin. Its origin came from a letter from the U.S. Department of Defense in 1974. An aircraft was requested that could slip undetected through enemy electronic warning systems by low or no emittance or by reflecting light, radar, and infrared energy. The F-117 was developed by Lockheed Martin's Advanced Development Project, affectionately known as Skunk Works. The F-117 has twin turbofan engines without afterburners and has a sharply swept back, triangular shape with the surface covered in radar-absorbing material. The body of the jet consists of many flat planes that reflect radar away from its transmitter, rendering it invisible to enemy radar. The final working model was delivered to the U.S. Air Force in 1982. But this was only after years of failed prototypes crashing during test flights. Production stopped in 1990 after only 59 planes were built. The F-117 was used extensively in the Gulf War, Iraq, and Kosovo. It was retired in stages between 2006 and 2008. Nowadays, research is heavily influenced by the utility and complexity of drone technology, and Area 51 is spearheading the research into the possible uses for it. While all of that is what we certainly know about Area 51 from its 1950s origin through now, there have been conspiracy theories abound, and all of the extreme secrecy surrounding it has done nothing to quell the curiosity or the rumors. In fact, there was a huge raid planned in 2019 by a group who wanted to charge the gates to find out what really goes on there. The raid didn't happen, of course, but no trespassing signs, fences, barbed wire, and surveillance have stopped people from trying to get inside before. Should they make it past the gates, trespassers can expect to be greeted in a very aggressive manner by heavily armed military. They exit their vehicles with weapons drawn, shouting directions to keep hands up, and asking why the trespasser is there. Sometimes, luckier trespassers can get away with a warning, but others can be jailed or even shot on the spot. People ask, why all the secrecy now that we know about all the espionage and aircraft development? Are they hiding something there? What could it be? Why shoot people? Thus, the conspiracy theories fly once again. But Area 51 has never been without suspicion. In 1947, a suspicious aircraft crashed in Roswell, New Mexico. But that wasn't the first report of an unusually shaped craft. In 1945, a report came out that a strange parabolic-shaped craft existed, but was not alien in nature. It was the brainchild of two German brothers, the Hortons. When the craft crashed in Roswell, the CIA went out on a global manhunt for the Hortons, but it was rumored then that the Roswell aircraft and alien bodies were sent to Area 51. Far-fetched? Not according to Robert Lazar, a former employee who worked at a restricted area near Area 51 back in the 1950s. According to Lazar's account in a 2018 documentary on Netflix, he was walking down a hall at S4, a base several miles south of Area 51, when, looking through a window, he saw two men in lab coats escorting a small gray alien. Lazar was told by a nearby guard to stop looking around and to move along. He also claimed that he worked on alien technology and saw medical photographs of aliens. Area 51, according to Lazar, was being actively used by the U.S. government to investigate UFOs. In fact, Lazar claimed that the captured alien craft was made up of element 115, moscovium. Element 115 is a synthetic element that wasn't created until 2003 by a joint nuclear research project with American and Russian scientists. However, that isn't the only conspiracy theory surrounding Area 51. There's a theory that the US government is creating technology to try to control the weather. In light of climate change, this doesn't sound like an unreasonable endeavor, but let's hope they succeed. The largest conspiracy centers around the alleged black helicopters that people have been associating with cattle mutilations for decades. According to the theory, Area 51 is the home base for these unmarked helicopters. Since the 1970s, people have claimed to see black helicopters in the vicinity where cattle have been mutilated. Many of these cattle were on Indian reservation lands. And that's not all these helicopters have allegedly done. They are also accused of spraying toxic substances over neighborhoods for some unknown testing project. Cattle mutilations and spraying substances are not new crimes, though. They came to the forefront in the 1970s, but have been a concern for centuries. So, what do cattle mutilations and chemical dumping have to do with aliens? Live subjects for experiments, of course. But what exactly are they looking for? It's rumored that the government has been testing germ warfare, the use of vitamin B12, and experimenting with the human lymphatic system. Judging by the post-mortem, the cattle have been lifted by their legs or brisket by a strap, taken somewhere else to be mutilated, and then returned and dropped from a height. Both hind legs were dislocated from their hips, suggesting they were lifted by their legs, cleanly cut and mutilated, missing many entrails and blood, and the ground underneath showing evidence that the animal was just dropped. However, that only suggests, what happened. It does not suggest why. The official FBI stance is that the mutilations that still occur today are from predatory animals like wolves and coyotes. Since the early 1900s, the world's superpowers have been desperate to find some way of destroying their enemies. No major empire in history was ever built on being sweet, after all. Anyway, scientists have known for over a century that warfare with conventional guns, bullets, aircraft, and bombs may wreck a military presence, but does nothing, or little to nothing, to the homeland. How can they devastate the masses? Unfortunately, the oldest answer is germ warfare. This is where the tale turns very grim. Ranchers have felt since the 70s that the US government has been performing these bizarre mutilations as experiments relating to biological warfare. The toxic substances being sprayed are also a part of biological experimentation. But there could be other reasons. We know our food is already being genetically modified. The government could be experimenting with cloning or genetic mutation and modification in livestock. In 1996, Scottish scientists cloned a sheep named Dolly that wasn't exactly a smashing success. What about experiments from foreign governments? Have they ever reached American soil? The answer? A loud, resounding yes. In 1915, during World War I, the Germans had the bright idea to sabotage the American food and pack animals being sent to aid the Allies. They sent a German, Anton Dilger, to America with an assortment of viruses and bacteria with the sole intent of biological sabotage. He set up a lab in Chevy Chase, Maryland to mass produce his germs for infecting cattle, horses, pigs, and mules throughout the country. He recruited 12 assistants to help him infect as many animals as possible. All 13 men traveled the country with their virulent strains, including anthrax, jabbing all the livestock they could find. They infected the fodder and even the animals' drinking water in order to further disperse their pestilence. Then, in 1945, Japanese balloon bombs landed in North and South Dakota. They are high-altitude balloons that have some form of disease mixed into the hydrogen, which will disperse upon crashing. These particular balloons contained anthrax. The crash sites were allegedly investigated by an unknown man sent from Langley Field Air Force Base in Virginia. Also in the 1940s, it came out that there was a mass infection of livestock in the Soviet Union that killed 25,000 horses by anthrax and tens of thousands of pigs by erysipelas, and other plagues introduced through Maricocera. With all of this being said, it's unsure which is worse, the government or aliens. Are we using alien wisdom in nuclear and genetic testing? Are there alien spacecraft here on Earth? Are there aliens on Earth? According to conspiracy theorists, Area 51 holds the answers. However, if they do ever get inside, they may find that the most disturbing experiments are by the hands of our own government. Until all the secrets of Area 51 come to light, which, of course, may never happen due to the clandestine nature of espionage and stealth, we can only speculate and keep a close eye on the skies above us, as well as the food and water that sustain us. My name is Ashley. Thank you so much for watching. We're a group of curious and passionate humans creating documentary-style content for those who share our curiosity, ask questions, and seek to dig deeper in a world where almost everything isn't quite what it seems. We are Mystery Syndicate. If you like what we do, please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel, leave a comment, and give this video a like. And to be notified when we post new videos, hit that notification bell. Also, check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Patreon. For exclusive merchandise and our blog, visit our website at www.mysterysyndicate.com. From all of us at Mystery Syndicate, thank you so much again. We sincerely appreciate your support.